Warning: the views and opinions expressed in this program are our own and/or those of our guests. They do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of our employers. Viewers' discretion is advised.
What kind of advice can you give to new BDOs to setting goals, objectives, and staying on track?
Don't come into Michigan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to rush closing on a real estate deal. Get that appraisal up front, bro.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What are you
Right away.
talking about?
Right.
You know, and if you don't know how to do that, then make sure that you do that.
What do you do when someone doesn't row in the same direction?
I'm kind of into a sick Emily though. It's doing something for me. Weird way.
You are not the first person that has said this.
It's like meeting a broad at Dart League, you know? Like,
It's like meeting a fraud at Dart League.
It's Johnny's hideaway.
I grew up in the land of denim jackets, so you know.
Hey man,
Do you wanna
I'm
see
in the
my
city
weighted
that
darts?
as soon as they banned smoking,
Oh, man.
all the bowling alleys went on strike, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was up in arms.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, my stepdad's bar, they're like, no smoking bars, and they're still smoking there. So.
I knew several bars that it took them a while. The police had to come in and shut them down.
Johnny's hideaway,
Yeah.
still smoking there.
Hey.
At least last time I went. I don't know.
Well, find me at your local dive bar where all the men are.
But I was in there and some dude took his shirt off on the dance floor and he got kicked out.
Oh, well, lots changed. In that
But he
place.
did get a warning. He put his
That's
shirt back
now a
on.
move.
then he
Yeah,
took his
that's
shirt back off again.
it's 2024.
Okay, BDOs, it's story time. And no, I am not talking about the time Sterling tried to finance a zoo. You'll have to go back to episode 3 for that. I'm talking about the story that your borrower has in their head and they may need that extra boost to finally get it onto paper. Rapid Business Plans is a known and trusted partner that can help them do just that. Whether your borrowers are working towards acquiring a business, starting one up, or expanding and making moves, within just a few short days, Rapid Business Plans will deliver powerful, fast, SBA and USDA ready business plans with projections and assumptions. If they need an export business plan for an ITL loan or a feasibility study, they have you covered there too. We know this process is not a walk in the park, or should I say zoo. Let the Rapid Business Plans team take some of the wild out of the process so that your borrower's vision and passions can come to life. For more information or to get acquainted, email Bethany McClellan at bethany@rapidbusinessplans.com or click the link in the show notes.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the BDO Show Season 2. We're coming at you live from Scottsdale, Arizona, and we're all excited to be here. Half of us are sick, and half of us are not. Elephant in the room, I have no voice. I'm going to leave it up to the boys to take it for the majority of the episode. But this is a podcast for passionate BDOs wanting to level up their game with advice and stories from battle-tested BDOs. I'm your co-host, Emily Detor, and I'm here with my fellow co-hosts, Ryan Kroge, Chris Hackney, Sterling Birdsong, and Alan Peterson. At the beginning of each episode, we're always going to remind you to like, subscribe, smash that like button, actually, and send your topics and suggestions over to the BDO Show at artofsba.com. All right, guys, Season 2, you wrote in and we listened. We got a great couple topics ahead of us here in Arizona. We are all excited to be together. Everybody flew in from the places we talk about the most. We got Michigan, Mr. Detroit himself over here.
Go Lions.
And then we've got Tampa and then Syracuse, obviously, with 5 feet of snow currently at the moment. We are going to start off with a couple of good episodes. The first one we're going to start with is goals and objectives going into 2025, even though we're already here. We started setting these goals and everything we were looking to do back in 2024, but now it's time to put them into high gear. So I want to start off with you guys. Why don't we have Ryan kick us off?
Sure.
Why don't we have everybody kind of kick us off with your main goals and objectives going into 2025 and how you kind of got there and planned everything out?
So I've got quite a bit of goals for this year. I definitely want to scale it back a little bit. I had a pretty big year last year, and a lot of that was rollover from the prior, but things get a little bit too hectic. So I'm going to kind of weed out some of the sources of income or some of the sources of deals that I get and really just focus on those that bring me really solid transactions, meaning the ones that bring me good, nice, neat packages, nice, neat deals, put on a silver platter. Those are the guys I'm really going to focus on. They're going to get the majority of my attention, and they'll be the majority of my production as well. So
Quality.
yeah, quality over quantity. I went for quantity last year. I didn't go for it. It just started landing in my lap. So,
Dude, you texted me in December that you had a $5 million loan closing that you forgot was closing last year. I got a text from him. He's like, dude, I just closed a loan. I forgot about that.
Oh my God.
I don't want to have those type of situations.
Problems
anymore,
you guys have.
You know?
Just-
But that also goes towards the fact that we've got a really good closing department.
Absolutely.
That when you can hand off a deal, have your closer run with it, and not have to worry about it, and you forget about it.
Right.
You know,
you get that
so
email,
it's
that
good.
booked email, and like, oh, wait.
Yeah.
So you're
You
hearing it for the
get that
first
booking
time on the
email.
BDO show. You actually want to scale back production potentially.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I mean, my normal production for like since 2009, right, has been between $50 and $60 million. That's my sweet spot. That's my go-to. It's great income. It gives me a good work-life balance. Allows me to spend time with my kids, my wife, my friends. Lets me go on trips and actually have some fun with my life. Whereas last year I did 84 million, and it just took up everything that I did, right? And it was more along the lines, I got that much in volume because, and I've talked about this before on the show, I've always been the Detroit lender, right? I do $50 to $60 million in Detroit. Well, over the last 5 years, I needed to re-diversify that, try to go outside, do more outside of Detroit, do more nationwide lending. So I started going to more conferences, meeting more referral sources, more brokers, more loan brokers, and it started working. It started working a little bit too well, right? And so not only am I getting the local referrals, but I'm getting all these national attention as well, and it bumped my production up quite a bit. Now that I have this group, this massive network, it's time to start dialing it in on who's giving me more quality referrals and who's giving me junk.
So there are some diminishing returns after a certain number for you in terms of production.
Correct. It might not be income-wise. Obviously, the more production you do, the more income you make. But quality of life, quality of just quality time, right? Because you got to protect your time. We talk about it on here all the time. It's something that you need in your personal life. It's something you need in your business life. And it helps you deepen those relationships with the ones that matter, right? Because I've had too many situations where I felt like an ass. I'm like, man, I didn't get really a chance to see this person this year. This one top quality referral source that I get all the time, I didn't have that time to actually sit and have a great dinner and really spend some time talking about the year. I just didn't have the time for that because I had a stupid December, right? And I don't want that to happen again. I want to kind of scale it back in. A little bit goes towards, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I kind of want to treat my next 10 years differently than my last 10 years, where I'm looking towards, one day wanting to retire. Go to that nice nursing home production shop where I can sit back.
Nursing home production shop.
You can't help yourself.
Where I can sit back, make
not gonna
a
name any
nice
names.
salary and produce like
Great
$25
benefits.
million a year.
Great benefits.
Great benefits. The best benefits.
Chris,
By the time I'm in my mid to late 50s, I want to have that option,
you
Travel
already
the
are
world.
50.
No, I'm not 50 yet. Do not push me that far.
Chris, what are some of your goals and objectives?
Main goal is operational efficiency. I think we're going to see a return to speed in SBA lending with rates dropping. What I mean by that, we have an employee that I designated whose sole job is focused on forecasting production and the milestones and SLAs. And if we're outside of SLAs, what's keeping us from being outside or meeting those SLAs? So did we shave 4 days off the underwriting time? If so, how? Which underwriters are faster than others? If you don't know that going into 2025, it's going to be real competitive for you. Because again, I think with rates dropping, you're going to see CRE, refinance coming back into play. And those deals have to move a lot quicker than your BizAct deals. I think BizAct deals, they're a little more patient, buy side, sell side, depends on the transaction. That's my objective, is to monitor the SLAs and we already have it, a grid now where we look at each milestone, and now we're looking at the milestones within the milestone. So like underwriting, questions out, how long does it take for each person to do it, right? Questions back, how long does it take for a person to complete a memo as well? So if you don't know those, then that becomes dangerous for you. I don't think a BDO needs to know all those milestones, maybe your full cycle. But for me as a division leader, it's something that I'm focused on because I want us to become as efficient as possible and decrease that time frame.
And underwriters, if you didn't know you were being watched, now you do.
Oh, they know
And he
for
said it
sure.
inside.
You're on the clock,
Yeah,
as they say.
they know.
Sterling, what about you? What do you got going on?
All right, so I have two goals. One would be inside the bank, and then the other one would be outside of the bank. But both are in regards to SBA. So my inside the bank goal is that I would like to do more deals in Tampa. I would like to be a little bit more like Ryan over here.
Tom's gonna
Mr.
like
Detroit.
that. That's so
You
good.
know, I want to be Mr. Tampa. I want to do more deals in Tampa.
Yeah.
I need to get back to Ocean Prime.
Ocean Prime.
You know, I got to get my
Shout out Ocean Prime.
Shout out Ocean Prime.
I was there
I love
Thursday.
you, and I'll be
Prime
back.
night. Yeah.
I tell you what, though, you're going to have to like step up that fitness scale, though, because when you're a local lender, you eat so well, dude.
Oh, I know.
You
I
eat
know.
amazingly. I have some of the best lunches,
Yeah.
some of the best dinners. I'm like,
No, you're
now
right.
I got to go run.
Shout out to Stephen Hoshak, because of course I'm on the Hoshak plan. I'm going to
Hoshak.
get back on the
Hoshak.
Hoshak plan.
Big Steve.
As soon as I'm
Yes.
done here, you know, one of my favorite SBA lenders out there is also my personal trainer. So shout out to Stephen
that's
Hoshak.
dope.
Yep.
I like
But
that. Yeah.
my goal outside of the bank is that I want to get another SBA loan personally.
All right.
Because what that will mean is that things are going well for me outside of the bank. It'll mean that I'm continuing to grow my business and my enterprise outside of what I do in my W-2 job, open another glow tanning perhaps. That'll mean that things are obviously moving in the right direction. So
Are there any glow tannings in Michigan?
not to my knowledge.
There
Really?
should be.
Yeah.
There should be, man, because we're
I know a
pretty
guy.
pasty up there. I mean, look at me.
Listen, we can get you looking like me in no time.
Hey.
We'll figure it out.
Anything is
Born
possible.
Tan LLC.
Born tan, baby.
Alan, what do we got?
So this year, for me, I think it's about prioritizing activities that are going to result in efficiency, right? When I get honest about it, there's certainly a lot of distractions that I entertain that I'm trying to eliminate as I try to continue to chase a number. I'm not where you're at yet. So I'm still trying to chase as, you know, a large number if I can, but making the best use of my time. You know, also prioritizing my health and my family as well, not traveling so much. Last year, I certainly went on a couple trips that really didn't do much for me in terms of, you know, production or really serving me. I had a heck of a time, you know, but that's 2024. You know what I mean? This year, it's more about staying dialed in, focusing on the activities that are giving me the results that I want.
So Alan, dry February, you heard it here first.
Well, my birthday's in February, but maybe March, St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day, I'm Irish. We'll see in April.
June,
Dry
July.
April.
Aren't we going to be in Dallas in April?
There's always May.
Dry July. Dry July.
Isn't IBBA in May?
Dry July.
We're going to do dry 2026.
I'm
We're-
just chasing a number, whatever.
You heard it.
2026, Al. 2026. We're in.
That's my year. That's my
Dialed
year,
in.
2026.
Hey guys, we have a special announcement for anybody involved in M&A transactions. Our partner, Peak Business Valuation, have put together a resource just for BDO Show listeners, and they're giving it away for free. It lists out the rule of thumb formulas, or as Kroge would like to say, the down and dirty, for some of the most common industries that SBA lenders finance. I promise you it's going to come in handy. Kroge's literally still using the one he got from Nagel in 2002. By the way, if you're not thinking about evaluation at the pre-screen phase, you are missing the boat. A lot of BDOs tend to focus on the debt service coverage, and they're missing the valuation completely. That's a rookie move, and it will become a problem. As a consultative BDO, you should have a sense of whether the business is going to value out, and Peak's handy-dandy rule of thumb is here to help. Go to peakbizval.com/BDO show to get yours today.
All right, so we went over some goals and objectives. Now let's talk about behind the scenes, the people around you, the people in your circle, the people that work for you, with you on a daily basis. When you make your goals and objectives, do you have to bring your tribe, or like, do you talk to like your wives or your spouses or anybody else in your life? You're like, okay, these are my goals and objectives for my life and, you know, my job, my career, outside goals. Who do you involve when making these, when you prioritize?
Yeah, that's a great question, because my wife and I were actually just talking about this. Like, we always try to, at least sometime at the beginning of the year, talk about what we plan to do for the year. Whether it's planning trips, vacations, but most importantly, like, what are our goals? You know, and I asked her, like, was I away too long last year, too many times? Did I go to too many conferences? And she actually said, not
enough.
really, because I came to a lot of them.
Yeah,
And
a
so
spot.
I think that helps too, the fact that I was able to bring her to a few. But yes, I definitely talk it over with my wife, and we talk about how we're going to game plan for this year. But Al and I share the same tribe, and they actually came to us first before we even had a chance to
That's
formulate
amazing.
something. It was great. Amanda and Olivia came to Al and I and said, look, we plan the whole itemized sheet of what they plan to do to be more efficient this year and to make our job a lot easier. And Al and I were kind of like, I guess we're doing something
you
right.
guys in.
Yeah.
They were like,
they pulled
listen to
us
us.
in.
We're,
I mean,
we're the captain now.
we
sure.
understand too. It's like, you know, we can't do this without our people. Literally, a loan's not going to close without everybody, right? So when we have that support and that kind of motivation from our folks, like, hey, how are we going to push this thing and just make it smoother, better? What should we be doing? When they're already thinking that way, that keeps me really excited, really motivated, and just grateful that such great people having our back. You know what I mean? So.
They're awesome. Our assistants, Amanda and Olivia, I'll say their names.
Shout out Amanda, Olivia.
Shout out to Amanda and
Absolutely.
Olivia, man. They make our lives a lot easier.
Yeah.
We got them chasing paper. We got them, chasing closings, getting things more efficient. I mean, the throughput is it's awesome.
Yeah.
I think just in general, having people around you that are supportive
Right.
and optimistic and actually want to drive you to hit your goals is super important.
Yeah.
Whether that be inside of your bank or outside of your bank, I do think that what you said about the spouse is super important because that's the person that you got to deal with every single day. Right. And so making sure that person is in your corner, that they understand the goals that you have and what you're trying to do. Like, I mean, for me, I say I want to be Mr. Tampa again. I want to go out. I want to do things. Well, that means I'm not home with my wife and my son. Right. So making sure that they're aware, like, hey, this is the plan. Are we all on board with that? Because that means that on Wednesday night, Daddy may not be home. On Thursday night, Sterling could be out and he could be networking and doing those different types of things. But that's what it takes if you want the ultimate goal to be more business in Tampa, more roots here. That's still important to me. So making sure you have people in your corner that understand that, I think is a huge part of hitting your goals.
Yeah, and bringing your wife and your family into it is important because it kind of hit me over the summertime. We got two kids at college. So I'm looking at her like, there's a day that's coming really, really soon where all the kids are out of the house and we just sitting in an empty house staring at each other. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, what are we going to do?
No, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, we need to figure a game plan on how we can grow together and move from one stage of life to the next. So it's like I pay for her to come out to a lot of the conferences, like she's here with us this weekend, to get to know some of my work family that I'm close with.
Right.
Have her be friends with them, get her to kind of take a peek in my work life and what I'm doing on a daily basis. And, I think she really appreciates that. And she jumps in and I think more she has a better appreciation for what I do, that I'm not just away all day talking on the phone, and she kind of sees and puts the pieces together. So I think as we progress in our marriage and our stages of life where it's just going to be her and I, it's going to make things a lot easier.
Well, how about when we brought our spouses to Orlando for the
Dude,
CLBA
that was
conference?
awesome. That was huge.
They all went out on their own and had a dinner. And we're like,
Yeah.
how was it? You guys? They're like, we're planning a girls' trip. I'm like,
yeah.
it went that well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, did we?
And then they hunted me down and they were like, do you want to come? And I'm like, yes.
Chris, how about for you as division president, having so many people that you have to get on board and on the same page? What's that like?
It is difficult at times. I wish I could say here, publicly that all the oars are rowing in the same direction. Sometimes they are not. With those, you got to just learn how to lead those people in the way they need to be led. It does take a lot of massaging. I wish, everyone like, here's the goal, let's all move forward. But people have different perspectives and opinions. At the end of the day, it's still my decision. And like, this is what I feel is best for our bank. So either get on or, you get to the side and we'll do it without you. But I would say the thing with being in the leadership role, you have to have early adoption and get feedback of what your goals are. So for example, the operational efficiency, it wasn't like one day I woke up, hey, you're in this role, you do this, right? I asked them, hey, what do you think about this? I asked some other people, what do you think if we got this person in this role, they can monitor our milestones, determine what the bottlenecks are, can give feedback to those department heads on how they can reduce those time. Great idea, Chris, let's do it. We rolled that out. The next goal I have, I want to start underwriting the bank statements, tax returns, that's antiquated, right? So we're working with 3 vendors. At my bank, we're pioneering. We adopted Lumos, we're their largest partner first. We're going to do scoring. And now we're doing bank statement analysis where I'm going to get your bank statements for 12 months seller, or if it's a commercial real estate purchase, I'm going to get your bank statements borrower. And I'm going to know, can you support this loan? I'm not going to have to do a DSCR based on a tax return from 12 months ago, right? Or your interim financial statement that's inflated. The bank statement analysis, we're working with 3 different vendors that we're vetting that already provide this service. So basically you upload the bank statements, you determine what the true free cash flow is. Mm-hmm. It backs out interbank transfers. It could see what debts are there, what other obligations. You can set minimum thresholds to determine if it's like an MCA that maybe there's not a UCC. You can say, okay, this business has $5,000 a month of free cash flow every month. So there's not a lot of guesswork into can you be repaid or not. Whereas you're looking at a tax return, we back until we get our DSCR
You can also
number.
probably find seasonality super quick too if it's not represented.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also for, an underwriter, it allows them to give them time to actually do analysis on the business. I think so many times now our underwriters are so focused on getting the memo done quickly that they're just saying revenue dropped in last year. Like, well, I know that, but why? Yeah. Right? I want our underwriters to focus on the why of what has happened and then have technology focus on telling me what has happened, right?
Yeah.
It's a better use of time. But with that said, I went to our credit manager first. I've been preaching about it for the last 4 months of 2024. I said, hey, I want to start working in this direction. I got one vendor that I already know. Can you look at these other 2 vendors? So it's totally been his project. He's been working on the side. So what I'm saying is for your goals and objectives, don't feel like it has to be all on your shoulders too. You can incorporate other people from your tribe, whether that's your spouse externally, right? If you're trying to open another globe tanning show, I don't know if it works like this for you, but maybe your spouse is the one that attends franchise training the second time around for if it's a new franchise, or maybe she finds some conference, I don't know, or just vacate things that they can support and uplift you to keep you focused. And this bank statement analysis, that's something that I could have done, but I'm busy. So, hey, Eric, can you help me out with this? So he's been running with that project. We'll be able to roll that out at some point too. But to answer your question, Sterling, directly, it is hard. You got to make sure that everyone at some point will row in the right direction, because if not, then it's hard to hit your goals.
What do you do when someone doesn't row in the same direction?
You got to part ways. You have to. And I say that not in, is it draconian? Is that the term? Yeah, draconian term where, you're a dictator. But at the same time, if you are apprehensive or just opposed and adversarial, it becomes cancerous to your team.
It
right?
can spread too.
Right, and it can spread to the people that report to that person. So you have to put the kibosh on it. We've parted ways, unfortunately, with some people that just weren't rowing in the right direction and weren't doing what they were supposed to do.
Or just not rowing at all and just kind of going along for the ride.
And just, not bringing any ideas to the table too. And again, you have the right as an employee, especially as a department leader, to say your piece and your perspective. But if you're never rowing in the same direction as the rest of the team, then you need to find a team which you can row with in the same direction.
So that was going to be my next question. But you guys kind of touched on it a little bit. So if you experience any disruptions or hurdles, how do you handle that?
I think it depends on the source of the disruption, right? Because it's a little bit different. Me just in a production role, the things that could get in my way, very often I can control. It's very often allowing myself to be distracted for things that don't matter, and entertaining, for example, referral relationships that ultimately aren't coming to fruition. It's not the best use of time. So I think ultimately, for me, when there's disruption, it's similar, but not in a leadership way, but it's part ways with anything that is not benefiting me immediately.
And I think for us in a BDO role as well, any type of sales role, customer facing role, anytime you get any type of bottleneck or any type of disruptors, it's our job to either go with the flow or change it. Right. That's our job. We're literally supposed to adapt and change,
problem solve.
Right? Yeah, we're problem solvers. That's what we are. Right. So when you hear about anything, we've had it numerous times. At our shop, I started just when it started. So we had growing pains for the first couple of years we were there, constantly changing, constantly adapting. Now we're a very well-oiled machine. We've gotten through our queues and everything is just banging on all cylinders. So it's like this will probably be one of the first years at the internet where everything is like everything is like very well-oiled machine. Everything is perfect. It's really cool when you see a shop start up, get all the people in place, make some mistakes, get some different people in place, and keep growing and growing to get to a point where it's like, damn, man, everything is clicking. Everything is clicking. Everybody's gelling. Everybody's, working really well with each other. It's really, really cool. But there's always still room for something to disrupt and get in. We don't know what that's going to be this time around, but right now, from the growing pains that we've seen, we're in a really good spot. So I'm hoping 2025 is going to be that year.
Mm-hmm.
That year, because I've been here this is my 5th year here at the internet, and I'm thinking this is going to be the year where everything just like takes off. We're going for that #1 spot, baby. Knock the big green honeycomb off the top spot.
I think when it comes to disruptions stopping you from hitting your goal, the first thing you need to do is realize what is in your control and what's outside of your
Exactly.
control.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You really got to hone in on the things that you actually have control over and focus on those things and leave the other stuff alone. Don't let the stuff that you can't control drive you crazy.
It'll distract you from controlling what you can.
100%.
And that's why you adapt to it.
Or
Right.
I see people just beating themselves up over stuff or just hyper fixated on the stuff that really is just out of their control at the end of
Right.
the day. If you let it eat you alive, it will.
Yeah.
So you really got to focus on like, hey, I'm doing my piece. This is what I know I can control. If I can't control it, then like, what am I going to do about it? It's like, people who like check the weather every day. Like, I don't check the weather because I don't control the weather.
Right.
It's like, it's not up to me what it's going to be like outside, but I can put a coat on.
Yep.
Right. And I'm not really worried about what the weather is going to be the next day. I know I'm prepared for it. Right.
Sterling didn't even know there was a hurricane coming a couple months ago. He was just like, no, didn't check the weather.
Well, I think that's a typical Floridian response, though. Hurricane, it's just bad weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like us with the snow.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
exactly.
Who
Yeah,
cares?
Or
We got a shovel and a coat.
when you see that negative number, when you wake up in the morning, you go, I'll just add another layer.
But speaking of when you can't control something too, Sterling, I think sometimes I see it a lot in leadership where, hey, this support person or this team member in my tribe is not up to the level that I would expect for our borrowers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where I can't just, because, it's a lender surfacing it to me like, you're bad, you're doing the wrong thing, you're out of here, right? So there's a way to approach that. What I would say from a BDO, document the challenges that you're having, because what makes it hard if you are simply saying this person's bad or just not good at their job. And
that's
you don't
a matter of
document.
opinion. You don't make decisions based on
Right.
opinion. You
So
need to build
exactly.
the case.
So what I encourage our team to do is, can you document what has happened?
Mhm.
And then they will show me, a screenshot sometimes of lack of response
Yeah.
or telling something that's wrong or communicating that I will have this back to you, borrower, by Wednesday. And now it's next Monday.
Mhm.
And that's documentation that we can coach and give feedback to that team member and say, hey, we were made aware of this. This can't happen again.
It also protects you from an HR perspective.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
not forget that, Brett.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not, some people will view that as like snitching or something like that, but it's really not that. I mean, at the end of the day, like, you do have to take some ownership, right? And if you're not getting to your loan goal, if you're not getting the results that you want, then you got to make sure that you're doing everything in your power to help make things better for yourself.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if you don't get to it, then you can't blame everybody else, right?
Right.
So it's about finding what you can control and what you can't control. Like, you can control looking and saying, hey, this person was late on this, and this, documenting it and giving it to your manager. What you can't control is whether or not your manager fires that person,
Right.
or whether or not that manager coaches that person,
Right.
But you got to make sure that you are at least doing your part to put them in the best position to be able to coach.
Yeah, just don't suffer in silence. I see that sometimes where people just, no one, there was a team member that we parted ways with on the closing front, and there were some issues going on, and I heard some like rumblings and, but no one came to me directly.
Right.
And then we got documentation of it, and then her manager became made aware of what was happening too, and just turned out we made the wrong decision in hiring this person. And within 3 weeks of her being on the team, she was no longer on the team, right?
Mhm.
But had the people that were experiencing those things brought that to us a little bit sooner, maybe it's a week or two, right?
Yeah.
So just don't suffer in silence. But there's a way you can have a conversation with your own tribe too. I don't want people to hear that and just like, oh, I go straight to my manager for having it. We're adults, we're working professionals. You should be able to talk to, hey, you missed this deadline, or what can we do to make sure, like, try to handle it yourself first. But if you see a repeated pattern, then you involve your higher ups to get some resolution.
And definitely have those conversations with your tribe. So many times, you hit the nail on the head, Chris, with the whole suffering in silence thing.
Right.
I think that's just human nature, that if we're not getting something or we're having a hard time in a certain department or a certain field, we just sit there and we just suffer. We don't raise our hand and say, hey, I need some help, because nobody wants to be that person and say, oh, you're not efficient or good at your job.
Right.
Because you think that that's what somebody's going to say, when in fact, honestly, that's your manager's job to coach you, to give you the skills you need to be efficient and, good at what you're doing.
He didn't even know
Yeah.
there was that issue, and he's between the problem person. There's another layer that didn't know,
right?
Let alone he didn't know. So I think it's also important that be mindful of the internal sale of what we do, and making sure that you're always collaborative, informative, and not aggressive or mean, but having that open door where we can speak to our leaders, leaders across the cycle.
Yeah.
Hey, I just wanted to bring this to your attention. I'm not trying to, whatever, but I think that I just want to make sure that this is on your radar.
Right.
Because it's really giving me some significant problems here.
Right.
Based on this, and I know where we want to be. I think we're falling short.
Right.
Because of this, and this. And I think it's about how you say it in a lot of ways too, because you don't want to come across as a complainer. We've all worked at where you get a guy that is just complaining about everything all the time, or trying to, a bull in a china shop in committee or in closing. Right. It's everybody's fault all the time.
Right.
But take a little bit of ownership.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to rush closing on a real estate deal. Get that appraisal up front, bro.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What are you talking about?
Right.
And if you don't know how to do that, then make sure that you do that. You know what I mean? It's things like that, I think, when it comes to working around that. Because if leadership doesn't know, you guys are dealing with all kinds of other stuff, So that's what I think is all about, making sure you're communicating effectively internally and remaining kind of collaborative, looking out for the greater good of the organization. Goes a lot longer than kicking and screaming like, this stinks. My loans aren't closing. Like, dude.
Yeah, because that's infectious. That spreads like a cancer throughout a whole department, and nobody wants to deal with it.
Nobody wants to deal with it.
Yeah.
What about obviously we talk to a lot of new BDOs all the time. This is what the show is for. What kind of advice can you give to new BDOs to setting goals, objectives, and staying on track?
Don't come into Michigan.
Or Tampa now.
Stay out of
Tampa.
Stay out of Tampa.
Only listen to these guys 50% of the time.
To come into Michigan.
If you're coming into Michigan, you got to check in.
Yeah,
you gotta
check in. You got to let me know.
If you're a newer BDO, you got to be methodical until you get to the level that these guys are at, where you've got people calling you. You have to break down, who are my referral sources? How many calls am I making per day? What does my average loan size need to be? But the main thing, it's the outbound effort, and you need to be methodical with that too. There can't be days, and I was talking to some of our less seasoned BDOs, like, this year I want to see you out of office or on the phone. Like, I don't want to see you just screen with your hands like doing this. That's for operations people. Just have, the more you're like this and you're not on the phone or you're not out meeting someone, you're not hitting your max production.
You got to track it. You're always big on tracking. We talked last season about how you had, for some new folks, like, what is your outbound activity? Keep track of it, because that way you can decide what's the best use of your time. What is getting you results? Focus on that stuff.
Correct.
And I still try to document and pay attention to what I'm doing that's giving me a positive return, and try to focus on those things. And when you're newer, especially, and you're not really sure where to start in a lot of ways, try a bunch of different things. See what works for you, and kind of embrace that.
Yeah, and document it. And like I said, I'm a big fan of data and measuring the activities too. And if you're a newer BDO, the majority of your day should be outbound efforts. That's all you need. If that's how your day is structured, you should be fine.
If you're trying to chase 15, and it's August, and you've closed 2, we got a serious problem.
Right.
Serious is an understatement.
Heck, we got seasoned lenders that are.
I banked a big December quarter, but you don't count on that. You're not supposed to count on that.
But like, if you're in a situation like that where it's like, hey, you're well behind your goal, I mean, you got to look at what you're doing and ask yourself a serious question, like, what am I doing wrong?
Before August, obviously.
Yeah. And then the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Try something different. Form a different habit. Because I guarantee you guys, there is production out here for everybody. I truly believe that.
Oh yeah.
Is there 80 million or 70 million? Probably not for everybody. I mean, he doesn't even want 80 million. It just happened, right? But I mean, there's production out here for everybody at the level that they want to be at. It's just you have to do the work.
Yeah.
If you don't do the work, especially in the early days, like, no one's just going to come and give it to you. So I mean, yeah, it's about forming those habits early and getting in front of the right people and doing over and over again.
All right, guys, great first episode. We've got 3 more to do here in Arizona. Love being in the same room with you guys. It's always the best energy ever. Go ahead, like, subscribe, and send us over topics to the BDO Show at artofsba.com. And we'll see you guys next time.